Communicating with your legislators. I'm Avery Xola, Voter Education Manager with Clean Elections. As Rusty was so kind to announce at the beginning of this meeting here. And just to go over the agenda of what I hope to cover today. And again, if you can, save your questions till the end, or you can put your questions in the chat, and then we'll make sure that we have time at the end of the presentation to go back and answer any of your questions, because I might answer the question during the slide. So the agenda today, we're going to go over the use of the request to speak system, or RTS. We're going to talk about what a legislative committee is. We're going to talk about a high-level overview of the Arizona Constitution and the legislature. We're going to talk about the timing of bill creation and how the process works. We're going to talk about how to contact your legislature if you have an issue or you just like to share some information with them. And we're going to go over trusted resources for voters on information and education today. So let us begin. So first up, let's talk about how to use the request to speak system. And this is a system used for the people from the community to go and voice their opinions to the legislature down at the Capitol. If you go to the Capitol and you go use the website, or if you use the website at home, this is what it looks like. I just wanted you to be familiar with this is what the request to speak website is going to look like. So you'd either request to speak or you look at your at a bill status to follow a particular bill. And we'll cover that more as we go on. So the request to speak program it basically allows the public to voice their opinion, and it asks to speak on bills on the committee agenda. So every committee has bills on the agenda. This is a way for the public to actually let the legislature know how you feel about a certain bill. In the past, so back in the olden days, we actually used slips of paper that were used to sign in and notify the committee chairperson that someone wanted to speak. So the only way that you could register to speak and with your opinion is to be physically at the Capitol. Nowadays, after your first setup at the kiosk at the Capitol, the RTS program does allow you to participate either from home or your office. So more on the rest. So members of the committee and the public, which you'll see is a list of names of people who've registered an opinion or a position, whether they want to speak or not. Who they represent and what kind of comments they have. So you'll see what organization they represent, if they're speaking or if they just have a comment. You can also find this information by searching past committee agendas. So you can actually see what people supported each bill and things like that. The legislators will see your opinion on the bill and throughout the process. So the process continually has it built in where you could have feedback on current legislation that's moving through the different chambers. The request to speak application, it allows you to sign in, register your opinion, and leave a comment. So that is public record. You don't always have to speak for your opinion to be heard by the committee. They do see that. But the cool thing is that it makes it public record if you're opposed to something or if you support something. So the new online request to speak application is available. And I believe this was something that they started doing during the pandemic. You could sign up to speak without having to be at the Capitol. That being said, the first time that you sign up, you have to come to the Capitol and register. After that, you can register and weigh in on different bills from the comfort of your home or the office. But again, the first time that you sign up for the right to speak, or I'm sorry, request to speak program, you have to be at the Capitol to sign up. So when you go to the Capitol, you create an account, you sign in one of the little kiosks. It's either going to be in the House or the Senate. And they also have a kiosk available at the Tucson office. So some of the other abilities of the RTS system includes you can view a compiled list of your positions on bills. You can update or change your previous bill position. So there's a bill working its way through, you went to a couple meetings, you feel differently about the bill, you can go into the request to speak and change your position on a bill. And again, the legislators will see that. You can register a position without having to speak to a committee. So let's say you don't have time or you're not able to go and physically speak at one of the committee meetings, you can still register your opinion again, and the legislators will see that. You can see upcoming agendas. So if you're following a particular bill that you're concerned about, you can see when it's going to be discussed in which committee using the RTS program. And you could also look through past agendas from past legislative sessions. So if you want to find out what happened to a bill, 2 legislative sessions ago, the Request to Speak program will allow you to do that as well. So we're talking about these legislative committees, and they're important. And so we're going to talk about exactly what they are and what they entail. So for the legislative committees, there's an analyst assigned to each committee who is knowledgeable about this particular subject area, and they're responsible for summarizing these large, complex matters to the legislation. So the legislation, they have hundreds and hundreds of bills and issues they're dealing with every day. So the analyst basically makes that digestible for them so they can kind of see the main key points. Every bill must be scheduled for a hearing by the committee chair. So that the committee chairs have a powerful role, powerful authority, since they don't have to schedule the bills at all. So if there's someone puts forth the bill and the committee chair has it in front of them, they don't necessarily have to schedule that bill to be heard. So oftentimes bills are never heard in committee, and they die for the rest of the season, meaning that they don't get brought back up again. They go away, they dissipate. There are many legislative committees at the Capitol. There's committees for the House of Representatives. There's also committees for the Senate. Some examples include appropriations. That's generally dealing with money, budgets, stuff like that. There's Commerce, Public Safety, Education committees, Finance. There's Government committees, Health and Human Services, Judiciary committees, Natural Resources on energy and water. Water is a really important issue right now. So it always has been, but even more salient right now. So that's an important committee. All the bills have to go through a Rules Committee. There's a Senate Ethics Committee, Transportation and Technology Committee, tons of committees. There's a Ways and Means Committee that I believe has to do with expenditures and taxation and revenues. So all these committees are important. In each one of these committees, they handle a certain special, a different policy, I should say. So the speaker will route these bills to different committees, and then the chairperson of that committee will decide if they want to see the bill or not. And then I wanted to add this thing because not a lot of people think about this when they think about the legislature at large or the legislative committees. During the months, there's an intern period, and that is when the legislator is not in session. So most interim committees, they accomplish, a few things they accomplish a few things in their meetings. They have about 2 or 3 meetings. Some of the things they deal with during the interim period, again, that's when they are not in session, is constituent services. So they're dealing with constituents' concerns. So people from their community are calling them saying, we have a problem with this, or could you do more to help us with this? They're dealing with that. They're serving on interim committees. Interim committees are addressing problems with bills that are good, that they have a pretty much good agreement on, but they want to continue discussion on that particular bill. That's done in the while they're not in session. And also, as the summer and fall months approach, it's an excellent time to start gathering information and basically lobbying legislatures about different issues that you want to discuss. So it's the best time to lobby. If you have anything that you want to get on a legislator's agenda, is to do it in the interim period, because they were going to be so busy while they're in session that they most likely won't have time to really address your concerns. So again, the best time to lobby or to reach out to your legislature for action is during the interim period. Again, more of the interim period. Most people refer to this to the interim committees as study committees. There are these 3 types of interim committees. There's a joint committee, which generally has members composed of and appointed by the President of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives. There's a select committee, which is kind of like the joint committee, but they also select members from the private sector. And then there's the ad hoc committee, which is more informal. They could have appointed members. They can have a member from the private sector or not. It's more just a committee at large. So it's not as stringent for the rules is like the joint or the select committee. All right, let's talk about the Constitution and legislature, like an overview. Some highlights here. So the Arizona Constitutional Convention took place in Phoenix over 61 days in the fall of 1910. As many of you know, on February 14th, 1912, Arizona became the 40th state in the Union. During the convention, the delegates used a lot of what was put into the state of Washington's Constitution, because they had just came into the Union right before us. So we borrowed a lot from them. And this is what the Constitution gives the legislative powers. And I just want to read this. The legislative authority of the state shall be vested in the legislature consisting of a Senate and a House of Representatives, but the people reserve the power to propose laws and amendments to the Constitution and to enact or reject such laws and amendments at polls independently of the legislature. And they're talking about the voters, us, also reserve for use at their own option the power to approve or reject at the polls any act or item, section, or part of any act of the legislation. So voters, we have lots of power and influence over the legislature outside of us just voting. There's other things that we can do. We can do referendums, we can do recalls and things like that. We can even put things on the ballot. So the legislature at a glance, the state of Arizona has 30 legislative districts. We just went through a redistricting process this last year. So many of our districts have changed, but there's still 30 of them. There's going to be 2 state representatives and 1 state senator from each district. State senators and representatives are going to be elected every 2 years, but they're subject to term limitations, so they can't serve forever. The legislative session begins the 2nd Monday in January each year, and it's supposed to last 100 days, but sometimes, as it did this particular year, it went longer than 100 days. And that's usually has to do with the budget. So the budget took some time to hash out, so it kind of went over. Again, there are thousands of interest groups represented by thousands of registered lobbyists working on over 1,000 bills each session. So it's very, very busy time. There's a lot that is done in those 100 days, and they are dealing with thousands of bills and different lobbyists and organizations. So let's talk about understanding the timing of bill creation. And this is pretty complex, but I'm just going to go through it, and then I'll summarize everything at the end, and we'll try to make sense of all this. So first, in bill creation, I like to start with this. There's a few steps you have to do before a bill even gets considered, to be drafted to be legislation. So first, you have groups meeting with legislators to discuss ideas for the legislation. They may want to talk about the origin of the history of the problem that the legislation is trying to solve. Then a sponsor has to agree to put forth the legislation. Only a representative or a senator can sponsor legislation. So if you're a member from the public, you have to get a representative from the House or a senator to sponsor your piece of legislation. And the Leg Council, or the Legislative Council, is the agency at the Capitol that drafts bills. So the actual legislators themselves don't draft the bills. There's actually a Leg Council. They go and they draft the bills on behalf of the sponsor. In Arizona, bills can be introduced by either the House or the Senate. And that's why you'll see some bills have HB, some bills have SB. First person to sponsor is going to determine if the bill starts in the House or the Senate. So if a senator sponsors it first, it'll start in the Senate. If a House of Representative member sponsors the bill first, it will start in the House. Then the bill goes into something called the hopper, which is basically just like a bin, a file bin at the Senate Secretary office or the House Chief Clerk's office, and then it's given a number. Senate bills start with a 1, and House bills generally start with a 2. So next after that, you have the bill, it's drafted, then it goes to, it's sent to a committee, then it goes to a first and a second reading. So the House, they have a first reading and a committee referral on the same day. So they read the bill really quickly. They don't read the whole document, they just read the bill really quickly, what it entails, and then it can be referred to the committee. The Senate, however, they read the bill first, and then they wait a day, and then the second reading, and then they refer it to a committee. So they have a little different process. The Senate and President and House and the Speaker of the House have the authority to create whichever committees they want. So the list that I just mentioned with all the committees, they can create one. They can, so one year you might have a committee there, this doesn't exist. That didn't exist the previous year, or vice versa. Also, the committee chairperson or I'm sorry, the speaker or the president of the Senate can assign the bills to numerous committees. So they can assign it to tons of committees. And this is something that we know in elections is done on purpose to prevent a bill from passing. So if a Senate president or speaker of the House does not particularly like a bill, but they feel like political obligation to put it on committee, they'll put it on several committees, and that stalls the bill because people are going to have amendments. People are going to want to debate the bill. The more debates, more amendments on the bill, the less likely that the bill gets passed. So that is a tactic that they use, is they will put the bill. So if you have a favorite bill out there and you're following it and you see it's on 5 different committees, that's usually a bad sign. You got to get in there and talk to somebody about that. So after the first reading and second reading, it goes to and assigned to the committee, it goes to a committee hearing. This is the opportunity for legislators to hear public comment. So this is where the request to speak kicks in. If you sign up for the request to speak, your comments will be seen, your position on the bill will be seen by the legislators, and you could also come up and get in front of the legislators and tell them your testimony or why you support or why you do not support a particular policy or bill. Amendments must formally be moved to be added on the bill. And what that means is during the committee hearing, if someone suggests an amendment, it has to be voted on and they have to vote to apply that amendment to the bill. There's also strike everything's or a striker amendment. These are used to erase the contents of a bill in its entirety and propose a new bill. So a committee could actually choose to change a bill into a strike everything, and it will be something else on when it gets heard in the chamber. So committees must formally have a roll call to vote on legislation. So if they have a bill that's in there, they all have to vote on it for it to pass and get out of the committee. Sometimes that could be tough, depending on what kind of bill it is. The legislature is, a lot of the committees are, Republican, largely Republican. So if it's a bill that favors maybe, Democratic policies, then it probably won't pass. And, and so that's kind of the politics involved in that. But they have to do a roll call vote on legislation for it to pass out of the committee. So then there's rules and caucuses. So every bill assigned to the committee is assigned to committee on rules. And what that is rules basically has an attorney, and they make sure that the bill is constitutional and in proper form. So they'll make sure that you're not like the legislation isn't breaking any laws, is why they have rules. And then they have a caucus, which is partisan. So it's members of the same party. So all the Republicans will hold a caucus, or all the Democrats will hold a caucus, and they'll talk about several bills and legislation. And they'll talk about a strategy on the floor. Maybe we're going to vote on this bill. We're not going to vote on this bill. We need to talk more about this bill. And they also receive help from their staff, which is also partisan. So if the Democrats have Democratic analysts and things like that working with them, and vice versa, they will give them more information as needed when they're talking about a particular bill. Because again, they deal with tons of bills and information. So these kind of help streamline everything. Then after, the bill makes it out of committee, it makes it out of rules, it makes it out of caucus, they put it back on the calendar for committee of the whole, or what we call CAL. And CAL is when the entire Senate or the House convenes as a committee. So you have these little committees: appropriations, ways and means, transportation. A CAL is when everyone in the chamber in that particular Senate or House gets together as a committee to discuss the bill. It's the opportunity for them to debate. I don't know if you've seen on the news when they're in the chamber and that big old electronic board is up there and they're debating on the merits of the bill. They're suggesting amendments, but it begins with really the sponsor explaining what the motive is behind the bill, and other members have the option to rebuttal or to ask questions or comment about the bill. And amendments can be formally added to the bill in CAL. So then after CAL, let's say it makes it out of CAL, it goes through an engrossing in a third reading. And engrossing is basically when they take all the amendments that the bill had being passed in CAL, they're formally added to the actual text of the legislation. So before you have amendments that are separate pages from the draft of legislation, engrossing means they take all those amendments and they put them together in one document. At that point, they have a third reading, and this is the final roll call vote on a bill. So this is where you see the legislators' votes on the screen, and say this legislator votes yes, this legislator votes no. They say that if the bill passes, they say the ayes have it, blah blah blah, and then the bill passes. And that electron displays that in the front of the chamber, so everyone can see how a legislator votes on a particular bill. So after the third reading, it's the time to pass the bill. The bill must receive either 16 votes in the Senate or 31 votes in the House. And that's just a simple majority. There needs to be a 2/3 vote in the Senate, or there needs to be a 2/3 vote in the Senate if the bill brings additional revenue to the state. So if it's about raising fees or taxes, which is called a Prop 108 clause, it needs to be a 2/3 vote. Or if the bill contains an emergency clause, which makes it effective immediately after the governor's signature, that also will require a 2/3 vote. So after the bill passes the House and Senate, bills are heard in both chambers. So they actually are going to switch. So if a bill originates in the House, it goes all through the process that we just mentioned. Then it transfers over and goes to the Senate. Goes to the Senate and then has to go over the whole process again. There's certain dates by which all House bills must pass the House and the Senate bills must pass the Senate. So if these bills don't meet the deadline to switch, then the bill is basically dead. But remember, they can always be monitored for strikers, because that is how you bring a dead bill back. We talk about these dead bills. The way that these bills are brought back is through strikers. So again, this is just the process of the bill in the opposite chamber, same as the other chamber. The bill is first and second read, then it's assigned to committees. The bill must pass the committee's rules committee, has to go through a caucus, has to go through a committee of the whole or a cow, and then an engrossing in the third read. Bills can also be further amended in the opposite chamber. So let's say a bill is sent through the House of Representatives, it has its amendments, is ready to go, and it gets sent through the Senate. Well, the Senate can also add amendments to it that they would like to see it. Or they can completely change it by striking it, by adding strike everything amendment. So a lot of play in there for the bills to get changed, even at the last, you would think like the last part of the process. So what happens after the bill passes both chambers? Well, after the bill passes second chamber, it's sent back to where it originated from. At that point, the bill may be exactly the same. It may be amended from its original form, or it could be completely different. So after it passes both chambers and the Senate sends it back to the House, it could be the same, or it could be different, or it could just have a strike everything and be totally different than what the bill says that it is. Or it could go to a conference committee to clarify the bill. There's problems with it, or they just want to talk more about it. What is a conference committee? A conference committee is made up of representatives. It's going to be appointed by the Speaker of the House and the President of the Senate. In most cases, the bill sponsor is also included in the conference committee. Basically, the conference committee is the members are getting together to come with a compromise on the bill, especially after a bill is went through all that work and all that process. They really want to try to fine tune it and iron out any problems that they have. If they can't come to an agreement in conference committee, even though they did all that hard work, the bill is dead. So, but if the Senate and the House reach a compromise and the bill passes conference committee, then it goes back to each chamber for yes, another vote. So as you can see, there's lots of voting. Anytime a decision is made or changes is made, it has to go back and basically people have to agree on the change. So after a bill gets passed out the legislature, then it has to hit the governor's desk. So after the bill reaches the governor's desk, the governor can do the following. This is what the governor can do. The governor can sign the bill, sign into law. The governor can veto the bill and return it to the House or Senate. Usually they give a statement on why they vetoed the bill, but the legislature can override that veto, again, with a 2/3 vote from each chamber. Or the governor can do nothing and allow the bill to become law without his or her signature. So that means if the governor doesn't sign the bill after 5 days or after 10 days, the legislator has adjourned or is out of session, then the bill automatically becomes law. So a lot of times you'll see that if there's a controversial policy the legislature has passed, the governor doesn't want to sign it, they want to support it at all, but they don't necessarily want to veto it, and they just won't sign it. But doing so, then that policy becomes law. So there are some effective dates on the bills after a bill becomes law, either by being signed by the governor or become a law without his or her signature, or if the policy is override by veto, the bill takes effect 90 days after the legislature adjourns. So this year, most of the bill or the policies and the laws that were passed in legislation, the laws took effect September 24th of this year. And that would have been 90 days after the legislature session ended. And the purpose of the time, the 90 days, is really time for citizens to collect signatures for a referendum. So sometimes there's been legislation that's been passed, it's been super controversial. And like I said, it gives different organizations and different community groups time to react to that legislation and potentially put a referendum on the ballot. So in summation, we're going to go over it really quick on a high-level overview of all we just discussed. First, a representative has to sponsor the bill, so they got to get an idea, or someone has to, the constituent has to bring them an idea for a bill. Representative has to sponsor it. The bill is then going to be assigned to a committee for a study. I should say that the committees, a lot of times, they'll have specialists, they'll have analysts, they have people from the public sector, from the private sector come in and talk about particular policies that relates to that bill, or particular issues that relate to that bill. After that, if it's released by the committee, the bill is put on a calendar to be voted on, debated, or amended. If the bill passes by simple majority, the bill then moves on to the Senate. In the Senate, the bill is assigned to another committee, and if released, then is debated and voted on. If the Senate makes any changes, the bill must return to the House for concurrence. So that's what I was saying, that after it goes to the House, then it goes to the Senate. If they make any changes, they got to kick it back over to the House, say, hey, we made these changes, what do you think about this? Then the resulting bill returns to the House and the Senate for final approval. Then the bill reaches the governor's desk. The governor may sign the bill, may veto a bill, or allow a bill to become law without their signature. Again, if they take no action in 5 days or 10 days after adjournment, then the bill does become law. And then this, I just wanted to show you all, excuse me, I wanted to show you all kind of what it looks like to track a bill. Now, I should say that there are some other websites that you can go to that will help you track bills. There's one that called Lola that we use for the state. Forgive me, I can't remember the acronym, but it costs to use this bill, and a lot of lobbyists will use this. And it basically will track the bill, tell you where it is on the reading, where it is in committee, what the votes are. But you could also go to azledge.gov, which I have right down there. I'll show the website. And if you go to bills and you go to bill tracking, it will bring you up to a page where you put in your bill number. And I chose SB 1255. That was a bill for Lieutenant Governor. And you can see right here, you can see the date it was assigned to the committee. It was assigned to the government committee, since it has to do with the government. It was assigned to a rules committee because they want to make sure that the draft of the legislation put forth was constitutional. There it sees that it did pass out of the government committee, but in the rules committee, it didn't pass just yet. So they need more time for consideration. They need to talk about it. Oops, sorry about that. But yeah, so this right here is very useful if you want to track a bill. I did an internship at the Secretary of State, and that was basically my job, was to take bills that would affect our office and follow them from all the way from the beginning all the way to the end. And I will tell you, the most nerve-wracking part is when your bill reaches, when it crosses chambers and it starts to reach the end. They can make it a striker. So you'll be looking at a bill, and it could say, like for instance, this bill, if they made this bill a striker, it could still say SB 1255, Lieutenant Governor Duties Ballot, then it'll say striker, and then it might have something else. It might say additional safety for playground equipment. And then you'd have to know what that bill was in order to either support it or to not support it. So it gets kind of tricky, but the state azledge.gov does have a way for you to track particular legislation, and you can see the status of the bill, and it also has the current position and any accompanying documents. So a lot of times when they have these bills, if you go to the meetings, you'll see documents on the table outside of the committee hearing room, but a lot of the time is also going to be available on here later that afternoon or after the committee. And they're going to have a summary of the bill. They're going to have the original legislation. They'll have their RTS information, so people who support the bill, who don't support the bill, and it will also have other information that you could glean from this, but very useful if you ever wanted to track a particular piece of legislation. How to contact legislators. This is important. So if you have any issues you want to why would you contact? Well, you would contact the legislature if you have an idea, maybe an idea for legislation, you would contact them. If there's an issue going on in your district, you would contact them. If there's something happening with the state as a whole that you want to put on their radar so they can address the concern and represent your district in addressing that concern. So there's a few ways you can find your legislators. You can go to you can use our website, azcleanelections.gov, and use our Find My Elected Official tool. Basically, you put in your address and it will pull up all the elected officials all the way down, I believe down to your city council, but I know statewide and the legislative offices, they'll show and it'll have a link to their website, contact information, things like that. Into the azledge.gov's website, so the actual contact information. Or you can go directly to the member roster page at azledge.gov/member roster. It's just a little member roster tab. You click on it, and it gives you information on the district the legislators in, what committees they're assigned to. So if you have an issue with transportation, you look and you see that your legislator is on the transportation committee. It's information you can use to speak to them directly about an issue. And it will also provide their email address. So you can try to call the legislature, you can try to email them. You could also send them snail mail. You can send them an actual letter, which I have done because I couldn't get in contact with a legislator. So I sent in an old-fashioned letter in an envelope. It was weird, but I did it. You could also call and find out about the legislator's voting record. So if you're curious about legislator's voting record, you can call the House Chief Clerk's office, or you can contact the Senate Secretary's office. I have these numbers listed here below. You can also call the office just in case you have any questions about the legislature or anything like that. They're an excellent resource to use. So now let's go to trusted resources for voter information. It's an important part, so you can't just trust any old information out there. So there's places that we can go. I have some listed out for us here. So for voter information, since this is you are in Coconino County, you will want to go to coconino.az.gov/elections. Contact your Coconino County Elections Department or County Recorder if you have any questions in regards to elections. You can go to arizona.vote, which is a website provided by the Secretary of State. There you can do a variety of things, including checking your registration, checking the update on any provisional ballots, look at your registration history. You can go to azcounties.org if you want information on who's running for the county. So they generally have an education piece on their website where they tell you about all the offices that are up for re-election and about the candidates running for those particular offices. So that's at azcounties.org. azsos.gov, they're the chief filing officer for the state, and they also create the election procedures manual. So super important resource if you have any questions on procedures or poll working, anything like that, any candidates, finance, you can contact the Secretary of State. The irc.az.gov, that is the Independent Redistricting Commission. If you want to see the maps of your district or how the redistricting occurred over the last 2 years, the outcome of that, some of the meetings that they've had, I believe they're still up online, so you can go and investigate that. azcourts.gov is where you're going to find out information about the justice performance reviews. So this year we have a retention election on the ballot. It's going to be on the back of your ballot. If you go to azcourts.gov/JPR, you will find information on the judges that are up for retainment this year. So they'll have their performance evals on there. And we have azcleanelections.gov. That's my agency. We have a variety of resources on there. We have our voter education guide, our My Voting dashboard. Again, you put in your address, it'll tell you where your voting location is, what's on your ballot, how to contact your elected officials, what your legislative and congressional district are. So My Voting dashboard is super important. I recommend that everyone go in after this and just put in their information, their address, and see what comes up. We hold debates in all 30 legislative districts and statewide. Debates included. Tomorrow we actually have the town hall, the Q&A town hall for Kerry Lake, but we've been doing debates all general election and for the primary. Those have been going well. We keep those on our website, and you can look at past debates on our YouTube channel. So if you're curious about what someone in your district who's running said, you can go to the debates and check that out. Candidate Compass is also useful. You put in where you stand on certain issues, and it will link you up to statewide officials and legislative officials that share those same values. So that's a good idea if you want to see where a candidate stands, and if you agree with the candidate, play around with the Candidate Compass. We have an ID at the polls quiz that'll help you get squared away on what exact ID that is needed to vote. And again, there's our website, azcleanelections.gov. Can't plug that enough. All right, we have some important dates. As you can see, today is an important date, is the deadline for voter registration. Again, today is the last day to register to vote. So if you have not registered to vote, or if you need to update your registration, remember, if you change your name, move, or you want to change your political party, you need to update your voter registration. Do that by 11:59 tonight. 11:59 tonight. Today is the last day to register to vote. Early voting begins tomorrow. You'll be able to go to an early vote center, or if you're lucky enough to get your ballot on tomorrow, you can go and fill it out and drop it in a drop box or take it to a vote center. Just remember that anytime you go into a vote center or a polling location, you have to bring your ID. So make sure you have your ID, even if it's just to drop it off. The last day to request a mail-in ballot is October 28th. Mail in your early ballots back by November 2nd. The last day you can vote in person is going to be November 4th. And of course, the big day, election day, is November 8th. The polls are going to be open from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. Here's a bunch of stuff you could do to get activated and level up your political power. You can volunteer, you can contact your representatives, council members, and legislators, start a petition. You could boycott, meaning support something with your dollars, or you could boycott, you could take away your dollars from something that you disagree with. Get involved in your local chamber of commerce. Attend, I can't say this enough, if you have time or if you can, attend the legislative or city council meetings. You can even watch the legislative meetings on Arizona Capitol TV. I believe it's on YouTube, or you can go to the azledge.gov and actually see the bills and see them debate and talk about the bills. So very important to attend and participate in these legislative meetings, because they do respond according to who's in the audience and who's on that request to speak. So they may change a position they may have. You can help others register to vote. That's always something you could do, within your family, your friend circle. Mobilize for a cause. Attend the city council hearing. You could join a political organization, volunteer for a campaign, attend or organize a rally or an event in your area. They're always looking for poll workers, so you can work at a polling location at your, the county and the Secretary of State. Always looking for poll workers, and it is paid. You can donate to a campaign. It doesn't have to be even in the state of Arizona. You could donate to a campaign in another state, because a lot of the U.S. representatives and senators make up our Congress. So people donate to other races outside of the state of Arizona. And finally, you want to vote. You want to make sure you vote. As of tomorrow, you will have 29 days to get informed and make a decision on voting. So don't wait till the last minute and get down there and try to vote on November 8th. And then it'll feel like a test, like a pop quiz. But take your time, get informed, and level up your political power. And with that, I'm going to say thank you. I will open it up to questions. You can always check us out on our Twitter, Facebook, check us out on YouTube. We have lots of informational videos, educational videos. We're also on Instagram, and we've been experimenting with TikTok. So if you've seen us on TikTok, we are there as well. But I'll go ahead and open it up to any questions that you all may have or anything.
Thanks, Avery. That was outstanding. Wow. That was a lot of great information. There are quite a few questions, and I can read some of them to you. So you don't have to scroll through the chat box.
All right.
Is the Capitol open to sign up for the request to speak only during the week?
Yes, it has to be during operational hours. So during operational hours. Yes. Okay. And I should say too, it's just all it is, you go inside these Capitol buildings, either the House or the Senate, and it's just a little monitor and a keyboard that says RTS. You just go and sign up. But yes, you have to be at the Capitol during operational hours.
Okay, thank you. The next question, did you say that a striker can bring back a dead bill, and how do they do that?
Yeah, well, it's in the statute, so they can actually, and that's the sphere of strikers. The president of the Senate and the Speaker of the House, this past few legislatures have been being more strict, more stringent on what kind of strikers they allow. Because I know in the past it would be something that's totally different, totally off guard, and almost in a way meant to deceive you, or deceive lobbyists and people following bills. But yeah, a striker could bring back a dead bill even today. If there's a bill that passed that was unpopular, it could be brought back at the last minute and they could vote on it in chamber. So yes, that is something. That's why it's important to follow and track a bill.
Okay, thank you. Kind of a follow-up to that. What is the justification for the existence of the option to strike everything? What are some common reasons they happen?
Well, what from what I know from my observance is that they will use a striker if for some reason they aren't able to get the votes in committee, or the bill dies in committee. The member or the legislature goes and they try to drum up support for it, and maybe a few more people will jump on board and say, hey, well, there's new information now, I agree with that, why don't we put it back up there? Well, you can't just bring back the bill, but you can put it on the striker. So you'll put that on the striker, you go talk to your fellow legislators, and then they put it up on the board to vote on, and there it is as a striker, but all your legislators are aware of it, and then so they vote on it. So it's basically, it is what it sounds like. It's a second chance at resurrecting dead legislation. That's basically what it is.
Great, thank you. Next question, do bills carry over from year to year?
Yes and no. So what will happen is a bill, yes, but generally the bill number changes. So it may be something where the bill is very similar. They'll make a few adjustments to it, and then they'll put that bill back on there, but it may be titled something different or have a slightly different number, or the bill may start in the Senate instead of the House. So yes, they can have a bill that failed this year that wasn't a striker could come back next year as the same bill.
Okay. So we have been recording this, so the presentation will be available within a few days on our website. But also, I know, Avery, you sent me your PowerPoint presentation. I think you've changed a few things since you did send it.
Yes, I have a few.
Are you comfortable with sharing that to the participants?
Yeah.
Maybe tomorrow morning you can send it to me. I can convert it to a PDF and make that available.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes, I would love to share this. Please.
Okay, great.
Take it and share it with your network or whoever you think could use the information. Yeah.
Excellent, thank you. The Phoenix RTS kiosks could limit participation. What are the chances to get RTS kiosks around the state?
That's a good question, and I believe that the legislature has to work that out. That's something they have to actually legislate. As of right now, they are only at the Capitol, and they have a location in Tucson. I know that really doesn't do anything for our northern Arizonans, but this will be something that I would contact my legislature on and just let them know that we need an RTS program up north. But as of right now, yeah, it is in downtown Phoenix and it's in Tucson. And the thought was, just like the Capitol, back in the olden times, people would all come into the downtown Phoenix to convene and talk about legislation and to speak to the legislatures. But as we know, more and more stuff is done virtually. And actually, during the pandemic or the 2020, I believe they had it where you could testify or speak to the legislature virtually, but you still have to go down to the Capitol to initially register for RTS. I know that sometimes some people have people or organizations register on their behalf. I'm not sure what kind of policy that is, but they'll have like one person from the organization register the comments. So that's another possibility, but yeah, there should be more. I agree.
Yeah. Next question, why is it okay for legislators or a committee to cancel their proceedings after posting their schedule?
Good question. That happens all the time, and that is a power that they have. And they can do it. They can cancel their proceedings. They can reschedule it. I've been to committee hearings where I've waited all day literally all day because the hearing lasted 8 hours to hear a bill, and at the last minute they removed it from the agenda, and they may place it on the agenda later in the week, or you may never see that bill again. So it is something that was within their purview and their power to do. But it does get frustrating. I will admit that.
So one other thing I was wondering regarding the 2/3 votes, you mentioned that in order to raise taxes, that requires a 2/3 vote. To override a governor's veto requires 2/3. Are there other things that require 2/3?
Yes, I can't think of them off top of mind, but yes, and usually they are things that are very important. So they want more than a simple majority. So like the governor's veto and the taxes, very, very important issues. So they will want more than just a simple majority. But that I'm not sure on exactly, the different items that they can do that, but I know that it's generally something very critical. Good question.
In slide 16, you were talking about the power of the voters that Arizona voters have beyond just voting in affecting legislation. And
oh, yes.
I'm wondering, in your experience, is that unusual for a state constitution to give that much power, or is it fairly common?
Well, Arizona was always a really progressive state. We do a lot of things differently, some other states, but as you've seen in the presentation, we got a lot of our stuff from Washington. But I'm not sure how where it is, because I wouldn't be able to. I don't know, because I haven't studied really other states in that depth. But in Arizona, we do have the luxury of being able to put initiatives on the ballot, to do recalls, and to have referendums on laws that we do not like. And these terms are, they exist in other places. I'm just not sure how far that power goes, because this is significant. This is specific to the Arizona Constitution.
Right. Okay, it looks like there's one other question. Doesn't the request to speak system that we have to register in person in Phoenix go against accessibility around the state?
It could. Yeah, that's a great point. That's something, again, like I said, that I would bring up to the legislature to talk about, maybe putting something in the statute where there can be one in, North Arizona, one in South Arizona, maybe in all the corners of the state, to make it more accessible, or just to make it where you could register virtually and not have to go all the way down to the Capitol in the first place, or maybe by phone or something. But these are just my thoughts. But again, this would be something that the legislature would have to tackle. Everyone have a fantastic evening. And Rusty, I will send that presentation to you right after we get off here.
Okay, thanks everyone, and thanks Avery.